So I've been speaking with you, Bill, about your book, Three Rocks. What comes to mind is let's say a stranger's walking through and enjoying your art studio, as I am. What would you say about the cartoonist life, or your journey with Ernie Bushmiller, as it were? What sums up the book for you? What you've learned from doing this book?
Well, I like to say that Three Rocks on one level is, I hope, just a satisfying biography, especially for people who may like the Nancy strip but don't know much about Ernie. And I think I would probably, the book would, reveal a lot of things that you weren't aware of that would make him more interesting. But the other thing about it is, I realized when I was doing the book that I was using Nancy not as an excuse, but as a springboard, kind of, for pulling in everything that I think about comics and everything that I think about art in general. So I have a scene in the book where I compare Nancy strips to Edward Hopper paintings. Now, where did that come from? It came from who are my favorite painters? I came to comics through painting. I did not learn comics in art school. There were no comics courses when I went to art school in the early '60s, and neither did I want to be a cartoonist. I wanted to be, I wanted to be a famous painter, and have critics fawn over me. Who knows? I wanted to be either Vincent van Gogh Jr. or Jackson Pollock Jr. I couldn't decide quite which one I would have preferred, but so I come to comics as if it's just another art form. It's art. It's all art. It happens to be art that involves writing, that involves narrative, but then so does a lot of painting. And my favorite painters are Reginald Marsh and Edward Hopper. So I don't know if it was a conscious choice or it just sort of happened, but I wanted to make Nancy and therefore Bushmiller, I wanted to place Bushmiller and Edward Hopper and Reginald Marsh together in the same setting, the same world. When I found out, another happy accident, that Ernie Bushmiller in the late 1920s attended an art school in Manhattan, not a college, but a place where you went to just do figure studies and stuff. And his friend there was Reginald Marsh. Reginald Marsh, for people who may not know who he was, became a major American artist who was famous for his subject matter was New York, and he was under the general category of social realism painting. Just, something that critics use to pigeonhole somebody. But okay, so Reginald Marsh and Ernie Bushmiller, I didn't make their connection up. They had a connection. They would go together, at least for a period, maybe a year or so, to burlesque houses, and they would sit in the upper balcony and sketch the strippers, as if it was another figure drawing class, in effect. They didn't do any more interaction besides that. They didn't go backstage. They didn't try to insert themselves into that world, but they would go together and draw, the strippers in the burlesque houses. So there was no need for me to pull Reginald Marsh into the book. And I said, well, how can I pull Edward Hopper into the book? Because I want to make this book be about everything, as if Nancy was like my springboard into everything. So I thought, well, let me see. On the Sunday Nancy page, this is true for all Sunday comics of the period, say from the 20s to the 50s. At the very top of a full page Nancy would be a narrow band at the top that was there just to fill space. So if some newspapers needed to fill it, they would have this little band of Nancy, a Nancy drawing, no words. If they didn't need it, they wouldn't include it. So these little horizontal spaces at the top of full-page Nancy Sundays are, to me, they have the charge of an Edward Hopper painting. They're about space as much as they are about content, because nothing is happening in them. Nancy may or may not be at the far end, and then you go for like 6 inches of a sofa, and you come to a lamp, and an inch later you come to a window. That's it. Those are, in effect, artworks. They're not comics. They don't have narrative. They don't have a joke. There's no punchline. But they have a charge, and that charge of stillness is very close to what I get when I look at Edward Hopper. So I wanted to bring those two together. And, nobody told me I can't do it, so I did it.
Very well said. Those were some of my favorite pages in the book. It's just an uncanny feeling. Also, I don't want to throw something else in, but Edward Manet, for some reason, he has that same effect on me.
Yeah, I can see that. And don't forget, Ernie was an art appreciator, which comes probably as a surprise to many people. When asked his favorite, once again, this is all Jim Carlson, this wonderful font of information about Ernie to me. I asked Jim, who was Ernie's favorite artist? He said, Diego Velázquez. What? I said, when you asked him that, did you ask him to tell you why? And he said, no, I didn't ask him why. So I don't know why, but it tells you something about him.
Yeah.
It tells you a lot about him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll end it there. Thank you so much, Bill.
Sure.